Hi guys, how are you? I'm really excited to be by Lindsay. Hopefully she'll be signing on shortly. We're doing a little bit of a chat to connect on being a client, what it feels like. Hi Lindsay, I'm gonna see if I can get that. Lindsay, if you can request, oh here you go, perfect. Lindsay, let me know if you didn't get that request. Thanks guys for joining. So, Lindsay, if you can request again. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. Well, I'll just give a little bit of background because I know there'll be
Yeah.
some people joining live and then some people who have no idea what's going on and they see that I'm live. Try and get my head not chopped off. So I
I know.
just wanted
I was like,
to,
I'm kind of low on
I know I'm trying to adjust my little tripod here, but
this.
and keep my dog away. But I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you for being here. For those who didn't see my stories, Lindsay is a former client of mine. She's a local San Diego mom. She's a registered dietitian. She's awesome. And I thought this, I had asked Lindsay, hey, would you be able to write like a small testimonial for me? And she's like, well, actually, it'd be great if we just chatted. And you got me on video and we had this on the calendar because then I'll actually do it. So I was like, okay. So it's a rare opportunity that I get to talk to a former client, someone I also consider a colleague in the space, and also someone who, like you, as a mom, has had her own three postpartum recoveries and has had, with different pelvic floor physical therapy and navigating different symptoms. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity for you to hear from just a real mom who is not that you're not real, but just, your everyday
I get
mom
it.
who's, navigating symptoms, trying to get back to activities that you enjoy, and keep up with your kids. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that as well. So I thought you could kind of just give us a little introduction on who you are, what you do, maybe a little bit about your kids, and how we connected.
Yeah. So hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm a mom of three boys, ages 9, 6, and almost 3. Um, and I also, as Erica said, happen to be a registered dietitian. We connected, Eric and I actually connected as neighbors way, way, way back when. She moved out of town, came back into town. We had sort of connected again. And I realized all the amazing, things that you were doing, Erica, in the personal training and recovery space for moms. And after my third pregnancy and attempt at postpartum recovery, I reached out to you at that point to get some support, and I can share more about like what kind of led to me realizing that your services were something that I needed. Um, and yeah, I'm happy to share about that now, or
Yeah, I
you know,
think that
we
that
can.
would be
I'm sure we'll get there.
helpful. Yeah, we'll get there. I mean, you prompted it, so we can definitely go into that. And I also just wanted to just say really quickly that it takes a lot as a mom when you're busy and to, I don't want to say acknowledge, but acknowledge that there are things going on in your body that might be beneficial to work with someone outside your realm, so to speak. I work with people in my village to help me with things going on in my body. It does take a lot, I know personally, to ask for help. So I appreciate your vulnerability in doing that. And if you wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what you're experiencing, either after your third or in between pregnancies, you can kind of go into that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, let's see, where do we start? Well, I'll say that when I reached out to you, I think something that I was realizing is I was kind of afraid to move. Like, not that I wasn't moving, but I was afraid to actively engage in movement that I had loved doing my whole life. And this had slowly kind of crept up on me pregnancy, like over the course of 3 pregnancies. I had things like symphysis pubis dysfunction that started during my second pregnancy. I'd been to pelvic floor therapist, and we can talk about, what I ended up doing too, in conjunction with working with you. Um, I've done my best to kind of take care of those things, but was still having pain. I had like debilitating plantar fasciitis after my third, which I had had my whole life to a degree, but never like this. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night to feed him and I was like hobbling. I could barely walk in the middle of the night or in the morning. And if I, engaged in lots of walking or even running, it would just obviously it got worse. And at that point, I wasn't engaging in any of that because it was just so painful. And doing like long days out with the family, like if we went to the zoo or we took a long walk, I was feeling pain in just everyday activities, right? And then I had
Yeah.
that was just again causing pain when I started to move more. So I realized I moved my whole life. I was a competitive gymnast, I was a dancer, I was flexible and I was strong, and I missed being able to move my body, and I realized I wasn't really engaging in those activities in the way that I wanted to because of the pain. And I sensed that like I couldn't quite feel the connection in my core like I used to, as a kid, for example. And I could sense like something felt off, like the way I was holding my body felt off, but I couldn't name it. I had no idea, what I was kind of doing, quote, wrong. Um, and coming to see you really helped me see even some of the quote little things that I was doing all day long that were worsening, the situation that I was in. And you're so knowledgeable that you could name so much of what, my stance and what I could do differently and how I could hold myself differently. Even just there as that starting point, which is so valuable. That was why I came to find, like, seek your services and where we started, which, right away I learned so much and realized how helpful it was going to be.
I'm so glad. Thank you. But one of the things I wanted to mention that you had actually put on your intake that you mentioned, like in your conversation just now, was um, fear around movement, and I think that that's really common but not normal. Obviously, is a common theme in postpartum to experience is that fear around movement, with symptoms or just in general. I'm postpartum, things don't feel like they used to. So there's that hesitation to make things more difficult, so to speak. And sometimes that progression is actually where we do find like the building the strength, but kind of can be tricky to kind of navigate um, and kind of figure out the progression. I distinctly remember you telling me one situation that where you would get symptoms was when you were playing like baseball with your boys and you'd swing the bat and you'd have to run to first base. And it was that quick change in direction where you would get
Or
symptomatic.
late,
So I remember
you could say.
during our yeah, you would leak. So I remember,
I see my sisters
different
here. It's
different
fine.
different
My
terminology. But so that was something that we practiced during our sessions was understanding like that hip shift, being able to open up like the backside and kind of learning how the pelvis worked and then kind of working on those lateral quick movements. So I wanted to call that out because there are specific instances where you as in like moms, might feel symptomatic, and that's how we can integrate that kind of within training. Um, Also, something I remember is you had to address some of the leaking, like explored like surgical intervention and a pessary and other things. Would you be able to touch on that?
Yeah, yeah. Those were some of the first things my OB brought up as a possible option. Um, and very well-meaning. He's an amazing OB. He also, brought up the option of doing PT. And so this is a very great privilege to be able to do this. But I got to, pursue pelvic floor support and you at the same time, which was really helpful. And those symptoms are basically gone. So that was huge, to be able to avoid surgical intervention and like other costly options, that I could just see the right people to strengthen the right way and get the kind of support that I needed. And I know that's something we all, like, so many moms joke about it, right?
Yeah.
I have yet to be able to jump on a trampoline comfortably, but we joke about that, right? Like, oh yeah, leaking, da da da. It's just part of being a mom, but it's really not. I'm 39 years old. That's not something, or really any age, I guess, that we have to deal with. Um, so doing that together, seeing a pelvic floor therapist and a personal trainer, you at the same time, and you being so knowledgeable in the space that you could speak the language and complement what we were doing, that I just felt really good with the advice and the support I was getting, because you understood what was going on over here enough to be able to adjust what we were doing. You're just very knowledgeable in the space, and I think that's,
Thank you.
you've worked really hard at that. That's been very clear to me.
And with that, with the strength training, do you think that working with the pelvic floor PT in conjunction with a coach was super helpful for you so you can kind of get that best of both worlds?
Yeah, I think it was huge to be able to work with both. Because there can be some, exercises that pelvic floor will give you, but there's less time on the minute details of the execution of those things. So there's less time to address those things. And so to be able to be in a space with you where there was really focused time on, hey, when you do that lunge, or when you do that hinge, or you try to do that hinge, this is what's going on, as opposed to me taking, the activities, going home, doing it completely on my own, not being corrected. I could be doing them kind of in a not as, supportive way. So I did find that helpful. Plus the strengthening, I think, is huge.
Yeah, no. So from a pelvic floor perspective, just to kind of talk a little bit about things we did with Lindsay, thinking about the pelvic floor from a whole body perspective. So if you're experiencing leaking, we were able to kind of dial in on, specific instances where that leaking tend to occur. So we can kind of progress to being able to do those types of movements. But at the end of the day, we're starting with the breathing. And that's also one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, the breathing, it's kind of boring, da da da, but it's pretty like foundational so that we can learn to kind of manage pressure flow through our bodies. So I just wanted to ask you about the breathing and um, your experience kind of like, I don't want to say starting ground level, but building like more foundational wise, like, did you find that helpful? Was it feel like you had to relearn a new skill, so to speak? I think I hear you again.
It was helpful and it was new. Um, Somehow I missed that advice in other, like, previous years of, maybe pelvic floor therapy, or it just wasn't something that was super emphasized. And learning, it sounds so simple, right? But like learning how to breathe in a way that doesn't create more pressure. And also, like you said, like manages pressure, and also how to breathe in activity, was really, kind of a game changer. And it's something I continue to come back to, could probably continue to come back to a lot more than I do. But it was totally different to learn kind of how to breathe into my belly and expand my chest in a way, that allowed for more breath, as opposed to the breathing into my chest and up and into my
I think
shoulders all the
Lindsay's
time.
freezing.
Did I cut out again?
So I'll
Dang,
chat a little bit. Hopefully she's okay. We lost you for a sec.
dang.
But I think just kind of okay. I think we're losing you a little bit. So I'll give
You're
one
kind of
final question in
pixelated too,
case
but
you're
go ahead.
there still.
Okay.
I know, dang. Okay, well, our last question then to wrap up before Instagram decides we don't have service anymore is what do you want other moms to know about strength training, like after kids, even several years postpartum? Because a lot of times people will say, because I kind of market myself as a postpartum fitness coach, and they're like, oh, I'm not postpartum. I'm like, well, you had kids, so you are postpartum. So, thinking about what advice you can offer to moms, like, regardless of stage. I thought I'd kind of offer that platform up to you because your kids are older and I mean, not old, but older, three. And what, if sometimes moms will say, oh, it's too late. So what would you have to say to that? Anything, advice would be
Yeah.
great.
Well, I definitely don't think it's ever too late. Um, Relatively speaking, I was still pretty early on, but I was still 2 years after my last kid was born. Hopefully you can still hear me. Can you hear me? You let me know, maybe text me if you can't hear me. Shoot, Erica, you froze. So hopefully I'll keep talking just in case they can hear. Um, I was 2 years out from my third child before, starting with you. And I'm now 3 years, out, and it still wouldn't be too late. And, I think we can always benefit from healing from our births and the caring of a baby in pregnancy. I think, working even in the field that I'm in, I see a lot of movement that might be too intense for their bodies. I can't assess that, as a dietitian, but know that moms want to get back to movement, understandably, but rehabbing and making sure we're doing it in a way that's supportive, I think is clearly so critical. And if we're having symptoms, that just because lots of moms have the symptoms, that we don't have to talk.
You're kind of cutting in and out, but I'm hoping it will pick up on the recording.
Okay, good. I can hear you now. Dang. So you're pixelated now. Darn, it keeps resetting.
Right. Just for connection purposes, I think we'll probably wrap up a little bit just with Lindsay, just because Instagram is not liking our connection to the internet at the exact moment. But I hope you got a few gems out of that in between the crackles. I just want to thank Lindsay. I think one of the things I wanted to really share with Lindsay is that regardless of how far postpartum you are, there are options to work with coaches, to work with pelvic floor physical therapists, to address symptoms so that you can feel confident in movement and are not afraid to move in your body. So if you have any questions on that, Lindsay's an open book. I'm here as a resource and I would love to connect. Thanks, Lindsay, if you can see me.
Thank you, Erica. Yeah, I can see you and hear you, and I just appreciate you so
Bye.
much. Bye.